Today we're taking a look at specializations or perks in Battlefield 1. Specializations have been in other Battlefield games before. If you're a recent Battlefield player, you'll probably remember them from BF3 or BF4, although they did work slightly different in those games. But now they're being tested and introduced in the Battlefield 1 community test environment. Now, when I say specializations, you can think of these typically as perks for your character. In BF4 we had squad upgrades, and if your squad was doing well, scoring points, then the little bar would build up and you'd get extra bonuses to your character. But now they're being introduced into Battlefield 1. However, there's no squad system involved this time, and when you pick them, as soon as you spawn, you'll have them all applied to your character. Now, a dice dev on the subreddit has explained how all of this works. So specializations are broken down into two different variations, generic and kit specific, and every class has access to 7 general specializations and 2 kit specific specializations. All players will start with 3 specializations by default, which are Flak, Cover and Quick Regen, and then further specializations will be unlocked via completion of a new service assignments, which will be part of the In the Name of the Tsar DLC expansion. But in the interest of testing and feedback, they've actually gone ahead and unlocked everything at the moment on the community test environment, which coincidentally enough is now available on console too. There's not much information there about service assignments, but I'm going to assume that they're challenges for each class, and when you complete the challenge, you're going to unlock the kit-specific specialization there. And specializations are designed to give players more opportunities and diversity within each kit, and not necessarily more power overall. So choosing which specialization to go with should add more depth and strategy to gameplay in Battlefield 1. And there are a list of these specializations here. Like you said, we've got the generic ones, so we've got Flak, and that means that incoming damage from explosions is reduced by 15%. So if you don't like the grenade spam in the game, then maybe that's one of the generic ones that you'll want to take. The next one is Cover, and that means that incoming suppression is reduced by 25%. Maybe that's something that you should take if you're a big objective player and you're always getting suppressed, or perhaps you like sniping at long distances. That could be a good one for you as well. And then we've got Quick Regen, and that decreases the time before out of combat heal by 20%. So if you're one of these assault players that likes to get stuck in all the time, always be in battle, and maybe you're always taking damage, or like a medic that loves to get stuck in, play the objective, get in the mix, but you're always taking damage, if you take Quick Regen, that means that you're going to start healing faster after you come out of combat. And then we've got the Quick Unspot. That's going to decrease the length of time that you're spotted by 2 seconds, so perhaps think about taking that if you're one of those players who likes to flank a bit more, and if you get spotted, you kind of want to move a bit quicker. Bayonet Training is next, and that means that your bayonet charge lasts longer and recovers more quickly. I personally don't use bayonets to attack people. I only ever really use them to get out of a situation if I need to fast, but there are a lot of people out there who enjoy using a bayonet quite frequently. Next up is Hasty Retreat, and that increases your maximum sprint speed by 10% whilst you're suppressed. So again, I think that's for those kind of players who like to be in the mix and run around flanking and attacking and always being in battle. And then the final generic specialization at the moment is Camouflage, and that means that when you're moving slowly or stationary, you're actually going to be invisible to spot flares. Now this one is really interesting to me because it's going to change the dynamic of flag play. Nowadays when you join a game and you're trying to cap an objective, you know there's enemy players there, you can see that there's an enemy spotting flare down as well. You're going to be on the minimap no matter what, which means that your position is compromised. However, if you take that camouflage perk as one of your generic options, that means that when you're moving slowly, I don't know exactly what that means, maybe just normal walking speed or crouching or prone, you're going to be invisible on the minimap to spotting flares. So that's going to change that up quite a lot. And now we're moving on to the class specific specializations or perks that are coming out. And here's where it starts to get really interesting. interesting. So for the assault class, the first perk is called Juggernaut, and this means that if you wear your gas mask, it's going to protect you from gas like it should, but if you take this perk, it's also going to reduce explosive damage by 15%, and this one actually does stack with the Flak perk. So you've got 15% from Flak, 15% from assault, so if you've got those two and you're wearing a gas mask, you're going to get 30% reduced damage from explosions. That's actually quite a lot, I think, and it's going to add extra usability to the gas mask. Now, the second assault specific specialization is called Controlled Demolition, and that will allow you to sequentially detonate TNT. I don't know how useful this is going to be, but we'll see. Now, moving on to the medic, this stuff is kind of cool, and I think it's a bit game changing. The first class specific perk for the medic is Stimulant Syringe, and the description is reviving an ally will give you both a 20% sprint speed for 8 seconds, and that one doesn't stack. So for the medics out there that like being in combat and getting stuck in, if you revive someone, boom, you're going to get a 20% sprint bonus for 8 seconds, so you can get in and get out of dodge. And of course, from that description, the person that you revived is also going to get a 20% sprint bonus for 8 seconds. The next one is called Concealed Rescue, and this is down squad mates within 20 meters drop smoke to cover their revival, and that's on a 40-second cooldown. So I'm assuming that means that if you run within 20 meters of a teammate who can be revived, it's going to drop a smoke automatically on their position. And this one throws up a load of different questions, because if there's a load of dead teammates and a load of medics around, does this just mean that there's going to be a load of smoke everywhere? I think perhaps a better option here that's been discussed would be if you have this perk and you spot a downed teammate like you can, it's going to drop a smoke on their position rather than just automatically doing it, because sometimes you might not want to drop a smoke grenade because it could reveal your position. That one obviously I think is going to need a lot of testing and tweaking to get the values right there, but I think that's a bit of a game changer right there, and it's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens with that. Now, moving on to the support class, the first perk there is called Unbreakable. No, it's not the movie with Bruce Willis where he's allergic to water. What the hell's with that? But whatever, this one is incoming suppression is reduced by 75% when your bipod is deployed. So that is going to give a lot of strength to support players who maybe take the suppressive versions of the weapons with the big bipods and they set up on a window or on a trench and just go ham with the bipod. And if people are shooting at you, you're basically going to get 25% suppression, which is pretty much nothing in BF1. And then the second support specific one is Pin Down, and that means that the duration an enemy remains spotted is going to be extended via suppression. So I think that means if an enemy's spotted and you take that perk and you suppress them, or someone else suppresses them with that perk, they're going to be spotted for a much longer time. It doesn't specify the duration there, but I hope this doesn't lead to everyone being on the minimap at every single moment of the game. That's obviously the worst case scenario right there, but that's quite an interesting one too. And then for the scout class specifics, we've got Scapegoat, and this means that a decoy is automatically deployed when you're struck below 35% health by a distant enemy on a 30-second cooldown. Again, it doesn't specify the range with this one, so by a distant enemy, I think that means that if you're in like a sniper battle with someone, or a support player or medic manages to ping you from across the map, it's going to actually automatically drop one of those heads on sticks on your position. Now that might sound a bit stupid, because you don't want a situation where there's loads of people playing scouts and they all go below 35% health and there's just like a row of heads on sticks. I can imagine that that's going to look pretty silly, and of course if the enemy hits one of those heads on sticks, it's going to spot them on the minimap too. So again, much like the medic one with the smoke, I think if you had an option to choose, hey, I'm below 35% health, and add a button or something you could press to say drop that decoy now, then maybe that's a better solution. We'll see. And finally, the last class specific specialization for the scout is Perimeter Alarm, and this means that when your trip mine is triggered, enemies within 15 meters are marked on the minimap. So if you put down a incendiary or a gas trip mine or an explosive trip mine, and an enemy triggers it, anyone within 15 meters of that location is going to be marked on the minimap, and that really gives trip mines a big buff in my opinion, because information is key in a game like Battlefield and the minimap is just so important. So that's quite a nice buff for the scout class right there. So that's all of them that are going to be in the CTE at the moment, and the producer goes on to say that keep in mind this is just the first selection of specializations and they're planning to release more in future updates. Specializations will only be available on the PC at the moment, and hopefully they can get it to consoles in the not too distant future. So obviously DICE are going to look at a lot of feedback on these specializations, but as it reads, it kind of looks like they want to release them in the Name of the Tsar DLC, which is coming out very soon in September. So I hope there's enough time to test these before they go live. And I think this is pretty cool that we're getting this kind of stuff in BF1. On one side, I can understand why people might be like, wow, that's complicating things even further, and for new players that's going to be really confusing. Totally understand that point of view, it's a fair argument. But the developers have actually said that they're not going to have any specializations that affect bullet damage, so anything that's coming from primary weapons in the game, guns, is going to stay the same from what they're saying. So no matter what perk you take, the time to kill for guns will always be consistent. And it looks like here what they're doing is tweaking the values of the more passive things in the game and the gadgets. Stuff like suppression, stuff like the minimap, stuff like bayonet charge. And I think that's a really cool thing because it's adding more depth to the game and more options for you as a player. Do you want to build your assault class to be quite resilient to explosives, or do you want to take something like camouflage and hasty retreat and be a bit less visible on the minimap? I think this kind of stuff is really good for the game, and of course unlocking these things with the special class assignments or service assignments as they're called, that's just adding more progression and more stuff to the game. And from what the producer Hohei is saying here, it looks like they're going to add a load more class specializations to the game in the future, maybe even in the monthly updates, so that's going to be very cool. So let me know what you think about this, guys. Do you think specializations or perks are a good thing for Battlefield 1, or should they be left out of the game completely? If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, a thumbs down. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you in the next one.